Okay, now we're actually going to talk about the purchase. So you've done all your preliminary research, you've checked everything out, you've made sure that all of your information is good, you know that you're in good standing with the law and that you should be able to purchase a firearm, no problem. Now you're ready to make the purchase. All right. Be sure of the purchase before you commit. Because once you start the paperwork, there's some changes that can be made, but once the paperwork's already done, you gotta kind of start all over again if you decide to change your mind, if you haven't already finalized the purchase. And don't let a bad salesperson badger you into buying what you aren't ready to or you aren't sure of. A good salesperson will understand if you're a little, yeah, it's frustrating if you've been sitting there and you've been working with the customer for 45 minutes and you're like, okay, are you ready to purchase? And they're like, well, I don't know. I think I'm going to go and check. Yeah, it's frustrating. And you do kind of just be like, because it is a little bit of a, it is kind of a waste of time sometimes when you just, but if you're a good customer service clerk, the person will come back and they will purchase most of the time. Sometimes they won't, but sometimes they will. But don't let yourself be bad. You're the customer. You have control over whether or not you purchase. And a good salesperson shouldn't just badge you into it. And remember that most sales are final. You will lose money in trade-ins or buybacks. A lot of guns lose almost, well, I don't want to say a lot, but many guns lose almost all of their value the moment you walk out the front door with it. I'm not kidding when I say that sometimes you can buy a brand new gun, and I'm not going to drop any brands or names, and you walk out the door, and if you were to turn around and walk right back in and say, hey, I want to sell this back to you, you would be looking at less than 50% of the original value that you paid for it, for getting it back. So be very careful about what you buy, because more than likely it's going to be a final purchase. Be clear about what you are purchasing and what comes with it. A lot of times, especially with used guns, you'll see like this package deal, like you can get a case or a little bit of ammo or some magazines or maybe a little cleaning kit or something. But be very clear, because a lot of people, they assume that they're getting this, and this with their purchase, and then when it comes down to the final purchase and they just get a gun in their hands, they're like, well, wait a minute, what happened to the ammo? What happened to the magazines? What happened, Be very clear about everything that comes with the gun that you are purchasing. Excuse me. Ask about warranties. For instance, sometimes a store will have its own warranty on there, and if anything goes wrong with it, they will fix it, or they will pay to have it fixed, or they will pay to have it shipped back to the factory. Also, ask about manufacturer warranties. Those are things that you may want to consider before you purchase. If applicable, ask about financing and layaway, because a lot of times stores will have those programs. Unless you have a trusted, knowledgeable friend with you, I would suggest avoiding used firearms, because sometimes you really don't know what you're looking for. Like I said, if you've done this a million times and you know guns and you know what you're looking for, go for the used ones. I don't care. But if this is your first time purchasing and you're just not kind of sure, I would tend to avoid used firearms. Now is the time to bring up any misgivings, ask questions, or change your mind. And if you're purchasing online, I'm going to talk a little bit about online purchases here. It is your responsibility to ensure that the firearm to be purchased is legal in your state. That's something that a lot of people, those online gun broker, that kind of stuff, they'll try and buy a gun and then they're like, oh, well, we can't ship it to that state because that state doesn't allow, that this X magazine or this type of gun or whatever. Shipping and selling fees should be discussed with the online seller before you purchase. Call your local FFL if you have any questions and ask about transfer fees and local transfer laws and restrictions. And I would suggest calling a couple FFLs and getting the best price if you have that opportunity. Some FFLs, there's only one in the area, that's the one you got to go with. And you better hope they take online purchase transfers. And any agreements that need to be reached, because some FFLs will not do transfers unless it's like, you pay an outrageous fee. Some charge as much as like $60 to do a transfer. So that's something that you need to consider before you purchase online. Shipping and receiving FFL holders will exchange information typically after the purchase is already finalized and all arrangements have already been made. You've already paid for the firearm. You've already discussed how the shipping is going to be handled and who's going to pay for what. Then usually the seller will take the gun to the FFL holder. That FFL holder will contact the other FFL holder and they'll exchange information. When the firearm arrives at the FFL holder that you have arranged with, you'll be contacted, and then you go to that FFL holder and you fill out all the forms to do the final, and pay the transfer fees or whatever to do the final, to pick up your gun and to look it over and that kind of stuff. Now, the paperwork. Relax. It's not as bad as you think it is, really. You will be prompted to give over any ID that applies to your purchase, such as your driver's license, your voter's registration card, whatever, your permits, your purchase permits, etc. You will have to fill out some forms. You'll have to fill out your ATF 4473. And if you want to take a look at that form before you actually go to the gun store, you can. You can go to the atf.gov website /forms/firearms ATF F4473, and they have the Spanish version and they have the English version that you can take a look at. And most states, you will have to also fill out a state form, and I can't tell you what that will look like. You can go to your state websites and they might have some examples there, they might not. Read them very carefully because you're going to have to fill them out to the best of your ability, and be honest. If you lie on your ATF form, that's a federal document, and you could be in big trouble if you lie on those forms. So be honest on all of your paperwork. Your social security number may not be necessary in certain circumstances, but it may be necessary in others. I know on the ATF 4473 form, it says that the social security is optional, but some states it's not optional. Some states they require it to run the background check, and it may make things faster if you do give it over. So, and if you have any questions, ask. If you say, what, I'm not sure about the wording of this question, what does this mean? Ask. Your clerk will know. They should have been able to go through them so many times they can recite them by heart. Okay, so you fill out your form. What happens next? Your clerk will have to fill out some more information related to your purchase, and of course, the clerk will check your ID, make sure that everything's up to date and legal. Some stores require a deposit and a non-refundable background check fee. So you might have to pay, $5, $10, $2, whatever. You might have to pay a background check fee that you will not get back no matter what happens, whether the transfer goes through or whatever. The actual background check. The background check can take anywhere from 5 seconds to 3 hours or 3 days, depending on how things go. And you have 3 results that end up happening. You will either get approved, you will get delayed or put into what's called research, or you will be denied. And what happens when you are approved is that you just pay for your purchase, and you continue with our financing you set up with the gun shop, and you wait out the waiting period if it applies, and you have a nice day and you enjoy your new firearm. It's really that simple. Now, what happens if you are delayed or put into research? Be prepared to go home without your gun if there's no waiting period already. Being put in delay or research usually means it's going to take a couple days to figure things out. And there are some common reasons of why people are put in delay. For instance, if you have a common last name, if your name is John Smith, and a John Smith committed murder, they just want to make sure that you aren't the John Smith that they're looking for, or the John Smith who cannot purchase a firearm. Sometimes something in your history needs to be checked. Like, for instance, you have a permit, and they need to make sure that your permit is current or whatever. Perhaps you had your rights restored, and they have to just check and make sure that all your restoration your rights restoration is up to date, and that it really does include purchasing firearms and that, like, perhaps they have to check your citizenship, or maybe you're a legal alien, or maybe you are a someone who has just recently become a United States citizen. They have to make sure that you indeed are a United States citizen before they allow you, or they have to check your legal alien status, etc. Different states have different laws as to how long you can be held in delayed or research status. Some it's only 3 days, some it's 5 days, some it's, I think, even upwards to 10 or 15 days that you can actually be held in research status for. Most states, if you have been in delay or research status for that a lot of time and they cannot find a reason not to purchase or to let you purchase the firearm, then you are allowed to purchase. By law, the gun store cannot know why you are put in research status. So don't ask. Don't sit there and be like, well, why? I've never done anything wrong. Why am I sitting here? They don't know. All they get is a response. All they get is approved, delayed, or denied. They do not get a reason why, and they can't, and you wouldn't want them to. If you had something in your record that you didn't want them to know about, you wouldn't want them to be poking around in your history and being like, oh, I saw that and when you were 16, you did this. That is your personal information. That is your criminal record, history, whatever. They can't see that, or they can't know why. So don't sit there and bug them. And you don't need to sit there and explain what might have happened. We don't care. We don't know, and we don't care. You don't have to sit there and be like, oh, well, what might have happened is back in 2003, I got convicted of possession with intent to sell, and but then, it got kind of overturned. I mean, we don't need to hear all your little gory details about your past, and we don't want to hear about them, because sometimes it might be like, well, we're selling a gun to this person? Really? The gun that you're attempting to purchase will be held pending outcome. I know it seems silly, but a lot of people say, oh, well, I get to take my gun home now, right? No. Until you have been approved, you cannot take possession of the gun. So don't make a big deal about it, and don't be like, well, I paid for it, Until you've been approved, you can't take the gun home. That's just the way it is. So don't worry about it. Delayed research status has two outcomes. You're either approved or denied. So, and of course, if you're approved, you get to come in, pick up your gun, no big deal. Now, if you're denied, here's the biggie. If the police come and arrest you and take you out by handcuffs, it's probably safe to assume that you've been denied. I've had this happen, I'd say 5 times, where the police have just showed up at the front door and hauled the person off in handcuffs. And it's kind of like, And then sure enough, about 5 minutes later, the status will come up and it'll say, denied. And you're like, big shocker. Of course, reasons for denial are that you lied. You lied on your paperwork. You said that you did not have a felony, or you didn't have this or whatever, and then they ran it and the thing says that you do have a felony or whatever. Or a warrant has been issued for your arrest and for something that you're not aware of. And this has happened at least once, where a guy who had bought many, many, many different handguns and firearms and all this stuff came into the shop, and he just came in and was buying a handgun, and the cops showed up and arrested him and dragged him away, and we're all going, what the heck? Because he'd never done anything. He'd bought many firearms before. Well, he came back about 10 days later and was like, oh, it all got straightened out. He had paid a parking ticket that the clerk forgot to put that it was paid. They got the payment, but they forgot to indicate that it was paid, and after so many times, a bench warrant was issued for his arrest for non-payment. And so when he was trying to buy a firearm, and there's no better way than to say, hey, police, here I am, come get me, than running a background check for purchasing a firearm, because it sends an alert saying that this person is here, they're trying to purchase a firearm, and they will send out a cruiser to come and pick you up. So that has happened a couple times, and some of it's pretty interesting when people are being dragged out of there going, I didn't do anything, and you never see them again. And we all put the guns back in the thing and say, well, that was an interesting day. Also, something that could have happened is someone filed a complaint against you. You know, domestic violence, whatever. Someone filed a complaint against you, and until that's all sorted out, you can't buy a gun. Now, again, by law, the gun store cannot know why you were denied. So no amount of screaming, threatening, begging, cursing, name-calling is going to get you your gun. I've had that happen too, where, you know, we ran a background check, someone was denied, and they go nuts. I'm talking like, you know, cursing, screaming, threatening, you know, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to kill you. That's not the way to convince someone that you're ready to own a firearm. And most of the time we'll just be like, okay, we're really glad that you were denied, because obviously you're not sound enough to have a firearm. Depending on the state laws, you have to, after you've gotten a denied status, if they haven't come and picked you up and taken you away, you have to respond in a certain way to a denied status. In some states, if you do not fill out a challenge form and challenge the denial, they will assume that you knew you were going to get denied, and they will come looking for you because you tried to purchase a firearm when you knew that you weren't supposed to. Your money should be returned to you, except for the background check or the non-negotiable or the non-refundable fees or deposits. And your gun will not be held for you. I mean, it's pretty much a no sale if you're, you know, if you've been denied. Once things are cleared up and your rights have been restored, if they can be, you most likely will be issued a denial reversal form, and you can take that denial reversal form back to the gun store, and another background check will be done, and this time they will use that denial reversal form. They might have to make a phone call into whatever report or whatever you know, instant check service they're using, and they'll have to actually give them the denial reversal number or something like that, and then you will end up getting approved. So just something to note for denials. There are some resources for people who are looking for information on purchasing guns. There's handgunlaws.us. ATF.gov is a great one. The NRA.org, of course, and if you want to know more about straw purchases, there is also don'tlie.org. In closing, be prepared before you go. Be open-minded and safe while you are there. Be honest on your paperwork, and be ready for delays. I hope this helps some of you out, and if you have any questions, please let me know.